to model your expectations. If you want them to save and give and invest, then you do that and then show them how you're doing it so that they learn from you. If you're already giving them an allowance, if that's what you choose to do, then now you have an opportunity to teach them how to manage money. The way out or off the struggle bus is going to be through your education.
Transaction Care, the podcast. Welcome home to the #1 real estate show on the market. I am your host and resident care coordinator, Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lily. My goal with each episode of Transaction Care is to demystify the business of real estate from my point of view and interviews from other voices within the real estate industry around the world. I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. So Jessika Shields is our guest today on the Transaction Care podcast. Her and I met last year through the 1K One Day Academy that Nicole Walters teaches. Shout out to Cycle 18. That's us. And she was one of the fierce leaders in our group, and everything she said she was going to do, she executed and immediately got to it and continues to thrive in all she does. Before I jump into her bio, I just want to thank you for agreeing to do this. I truly appreciate you coming on here, being one of my first guests on the Transaction Care podcast. Everything you do is phenomenal and much needed, and the world needs to know. So thank you again, and I appreciate you being here, Jessika.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and anything to support you, Lily.
I appreciate that. I really do. I really do. Jessika Shields is a licensed educational psychologist, mom of 4, and founder of Stronger Minds, Stronger Youth, where she coaches concerned parents of children with mild learning difficulties to improve their child's confidence so that their child is happier and more motivated to learn. She is also the host of the Parent Them Successful podcast, providing insights and resources to help parents regarding early intervention services. Jessika has nearly 20 years of experience working with families in the K-12 school system and has helped hundreds of parents focus on strengths in order to support their child's educational journey and overall well-being. She has packaged her experiences as a classroom teacher and school psychologist to serve parents at the highest level through her Building Child Confidence Through Strengths parenting coaching program, where she uses her signature framework to help parents transform their child's mindset from feeling like they're not smart enough in school to feeling confident in their ability to succeed. In addition, Jessika has authored several books and resources to support parents in applying growth mindset principles and strength-based parenting techniques to everyday life, which can all be found at jessicashields.com. So everyone, welcome Jessika Shields to the Transaction Care podcast. My goal with this podcast is to demystify the business of real estate. And with every episode in life, we learn about finances and business and mindset in our youth and in the home. So I thought it was appropriate to bring Jessika on, who is an educational psychologist. And before we get into what you're doing today, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about how you got into this field and why you do it.
Yes. So like you said, I'm a licensed educational psychologist, a school psychologist by trade, and I have been in education since 2003. So a long time.
Right.
How did I get here? I got here because when I was younger, I said, I never want to be a teacher.
Look at you now.
My mom was a teacher and she was a single parent. And from what I remember growing up in North Carolina, we didn't really have a lot of money. And I'm like, why don't we have money? Why can't we do stuff that I want to do? Why can't I have my piano lessons? I want to play piano. We can't afford it. So it was like this it was this picture that I painted in my mind that, oh, teachers do not make a lot of money. I never want to be that person.
Right.
And I ended up in education, right? But how I got to education was a bit of a journey. I was not trying to get here, but just through life circumstances, it was a really solid career to jump into when I first got married and then I had a child. And so I really needed something that was stable. And of course, someone in my church said, you should try being a teacher. You should try that out. I'm like, oh, she was like, the benefits are good, you know? So I'm like, okay, let me look into that.
Right.
So I ended up doing that. I taught for about 10 years or so at a middle school, and then in high school taught English. But I still knew that that's not what I really wanted to do. I put my heart into it, of course. I love kids. I love children,
Yeah.
teenagers. I love them too. I really do. And I decided that I wanted to do something that was more, uh, had more autonomy, but also was still helping. And so that's when I learned about school psychology. And I learned it from my colleague who was my school psychologist at the time. So I just did my research and I went into that area of work. And that's what I've been pretty much doing ever since, just helping parents that have children with special needs or learning disabilities, helping them to navigate the education world because it can be very complicated. And so now I have my license, I can have my own practice and do those things outside of the school setting. So that's how I ended up here.
I love it. I love it. And then when did you get your license?
I decided that I wanted 2020 to be a year of something good
I love
because
that.
it was a tough year.
Yes.
And I actually, yeah, my friend kind of talked me into it because she wanted to do it together.
Mm-hmm.
So we did, and I got it in 2020.
Wow. Wow. So you wanting better things for yourself, would you say that was the ultimate why in terms of getting into this field? What else is driving you to continue to pursue this and reach the people that you are reaching and actually helping the youth?
Well, I tell you what, I really enjoy helping kids and helping youth learn. I really like to see the light bulb. I really like to see their confidence built. I enjoy seeing them feel good about the work that they do. And I notice that when children have learning disabilities, they don't always get to feel like they know what they're doing. They don't get to feel that educational confidence. So I
Right.
like helping them build that. And also, I'm a parent leader in my community. So I really enjoy teaching parents some tips and tricks and things they can do and what they need to know to help their child get ahead, to be successful, despite any of the barriers they may face, despite if you have a learning disability. So
Yeah.
what, you know?
Right.
So what if you're in poverty? So what if your parents are divorced? So what? So what, you know? There's
Right.
still light at the end of the tunnel. So that's pretty much my why. I just enjoy working with the youth, and I love working with the parents to help them get their kids on track.
I absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more. And honestly, I wish I had someone like you in my life when I was younger. Not to make this about me, but
That's fine.
I had my own struggles in terms of speaking up. I was very shy. Now I have the language for it, but I could only imagine the impact having someone like you in my, even just in my corner to support me and to
Mm-hmm.
provide me, like I said, with the language and to feel seen and not feel like I'm so
Mm-hmm.
alone. And that's why I feel like this is such a necessary conversation, because even though this is a real estate podcast, in order to get to such a big step, you have to have that confidence and to feel financially empowered. And the way you're spoken to as adults, we're kind of cleaning up the mess that happened when we're kids
Mm-hmm.
and teenagers. And sometimes we don't allow for that space to be still and to hear our thoughts, or what am I willing to repair or improve in my life today. So on that note, growing up in your household, when in terms of finances and money, you spoke a little bit about, why can't I afford this, why can't I afford this? So growing up into adulthood, were most of those lessons you had to figure them out on your own, or was there anyone in your life that kind of help guide you, or are you still figuring it out?
Hey, I'm still growing.
Mhm.
I think we all are still growing, and that's good. You should always be growing, always.
Yes.
Like until you're dead, you should always be growing. Your mind should be active. You should be learning. You should be growing. But growing up in my home, education was a priority
Hmm.
because I come from a family of educators. Even though I'm from the South, and you talk about the racism
Right.
and you talk about the poverty, especially my mom's time period in the 1940s and 50s, living on a farm in a rural North Carolina. She
Right.
didn't always have all of the benefits or opportunities, but she did have a strong support system, and they didn't have everything. But one thing I can say about my aunts during that time period, think about the 40s, okay? Think about that. In rural North Carolina, in
Wow.
segregated North Carolina, right?
Right.
They were teachers. So education was always number one. Number two, I like to point out that even though maybe they didn't have much, my grandfather was a business owner. He had a store, he had a farm. We had our own land in my family, and all Black families didn't have that. But in my
Right.
family, we had our own land. So there's something to be said about having your own. And there's something businessy about that, right? Like
Right.
it's in my DNA to want more for myself and for my life. But education is number one. And I would say that it's important to just think about how your past plays a part in how you see money and how you see yourself in the future. And growing up, what I saw was struggle. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh boy, this struggle bus. I don't like this ride, you know.
Relatable. Relatable.
Yeah. So my mom always taught me that the way out or off the struggle bus is going to be through your education.
Yes.
That's why I value it so much, because it does open up opportunities. Now, when you talk about student debt, that's a whole nother story. That there is a wealth gap in America, and for
Right.
Black and Brown people, we are further behind than our white counterparts and even many of our Asian counterparts. So
Right.
it's important to understand that many of us had to take out that loan, and that could
Right.
really haunt us as we're trying to, like you said, figure it out,
Figure it
right? And
out.
how do we get rid of that, that monster on your back? So that's just another conversation. But it does help you and shape you as a parent to say, okay, I don't want my kids doing that or going through that. What can
Exactly.
I do to make it better for them? And that's what my mom did. She made it better for me, and I have to make it better for my kids.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I couldn't agree more because we really are the example and we only can give as much as we have been taught ourselves. This is a perfect segue because the inspiration behind this specific topic is my 13-year-old nephew. And he's going on 14 in a few months, but I've had a huge part in the last year in doing the drop-offs, pickups, and just being around him. He lives with me, but it seemed like almost overnight he turned
Mm-hmm.
into a man, even though he still sounds like a little boy and like still likes to play and joke around. But it got me to thinking of, me as a 13-year-old. And I was very fortunate that my mom had those conversations with me around money, how to balance a checkbook. I'm kind of low-key telling my age
Mm-hmm.
right now. Do people still use checkbooks? But
No.
she, right. She gave me some tools that I carried throughout my life today. And I still made my own mistakes, but now that I have a hand in raising my 13-year-old nephew and his little sisters too, so I feel like she's going to get the best of both worlds or all of our worlds. And as she's growing up, every morning, I talk to him and we have a great relationship. More recently, we had a moment where we literally took a wrong turn because some streets were blocked off and we entered this neighborhood with really nice homes. And out of nowhere, I didn't think he was even interested or noticed these things, but he said, "Whoa, these houses are huge. I wonder how much they cost." And I looked at him and immediately I wanted to go into like teacher mode or like quote unquote mom mode and like it's a less time for a lesson. And I stopped myself
Mm-hmm.
because I realized this is deeper than just this is what you do with this is how you do it. Like I want to nurture this and create a foundation and framework so he can build on that on his own. So my goal is to create space for curiosity without judgment or shame or much
Mm-hmm.
yelling. But I will say through this journey, it's been more of an exercise of my patience and a test of my communication skills. But absolutely love this, having this role and this responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. So I want to ask you, what are some ways we can kind of bridge that gap in conversation, or even not just teaching him about money, but having those feelings of empowerment around money? Because I've said things like, I've said no to him, but I explained to him why, and why for this reason we're on a budget. But is it me assigning him jobs within the home, chores, getting paid? Like what would you suggest that me coming in, and as you've mentioned, you also have a podcast, you've mentioned several times, it takes a village. So as a part of his
Mm-hmm.
village, what can I do, or anyone else in this situation, start to create those dialogues and give our kids more empowerment around, to enter this world and not be afraid to just go for it?
I'm glad you mentioned chores because that's one thing that I was definitely wanting to talk
Yes,
about.
yes.
I realized that I had been doing things wrong. I'm just going to say that up
Okay.
front
Thank you
because
for.
I recently read a book called Drive, and it's about motivating kids and motivating people, but mostly it really talks about youth. And so it's written by Daniel Pink, and he's a well-known author, but he wrote this book Drive, and I read it, and he really brought up a very good point about chores. He said, don't pay children to do chores.
Okay.
You're taking away their want to do something out of the goodness of their heart, and now you're monetizing it. So
Mm,
now no longer will they want to do things but just because or out of the goodness of their heart, because now they're going to expect a reward. So it's really a conversation or book about when is the appropriate time to reward and how. So what we want to do, and I like what he said, what we want to do is we want to give them an allowance so that they can manage their money.
yes.
You get this allowance, you manage your money, but you also get to help around the house, because this is what we need. We're a family and we help each other. And
Yes.
so then you will find your child doing things out of the goodness of their heart. Mom, you want me to take the trash out? Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Versus always expecting something in return. Because once you start paying them to do chores, now you've monetized it. And now it's like, I'm not doing that unless I'm getting paid. You have
Mm,
created it.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I
So
see that. I see that. Yeah.
yeah, so we really have to be careful about that, number one. But number two, if you're already giving them an allowance, if that's what you choose to do, then now you have an opportunity to teach them how to manage money. And you can start small when they're younger, because the younger the better, as
Mhm.
long as they learn that concept of money. And you
Yeah.
can take them to shop and show them how to save. And one thing that I would say that I did not learn growing up was the investment part. It
Oh,
was two-sided. It
yeah.
was either you spend or you save. You save some, you spend some, you give some to church, but there was no investment leg there. And I think that's what's missing as well. And parents don't always know how to invest or where to start or how to teach their kids or how to open up an account for their kids. So that is just that right there is a wealth gap. That is definitely a manifestation of the wealth gap in the U.S. between Black and brown and then white counterparts. There's no conversation about investing. It's either you spend, but you save, and then you give. You give some to the church or wherever, a charity.
Right.
But where's the investment leg? Where's that conversation?
Ooh.
So what I'm saying is, allowance. If you're gonna do it, give them an allowance. They can get a raise. Maybe you can teach them how to ask for a raise. There's some
Oh,
negotiation there, right?
yes.
And just help them through their money making decisions. And if they break something, you can say, when something happens, you may have to help pay to get it fixed, but then they do
Right.
have their own money. So it really helps, I think, with that concept of teaching them how to manage their money.
Okay.
And of course, as they get older, you can open up a checking account and make it more formal. Like teens, I think when they turn 13, they can open up a checking account, savings account is anytime. But also an investment account. so
Yes.
that they can look at their investments, watch their investments, think about them, research them, and get involved in that. And I've read where there were some teenagers who made money on Amazon back in the day. They're not teens anymore, but back in the day when it first started getting some, not saying this you're always going to hit an Amazon, but it's a great example of
Right.
someone was taught how to invest, and he invested in Amazon when he was like 15 or 16. And whoa,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was it was a good choice.
The best choice.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. Really consider reading that book, Drive by Daniel Pink, and think about how you are motivating your children, and be careful not to sabotage the things that the learning of doing things out of the goodness of their hearts. And we don't have to monetize every single act or everything that they do well. We have to be careful to praise them in a way that's not going to make them not want to do things just because.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned in definitely the last 6 months of really trying to integrate him into the home lifestyle of cleaning up. We don't have he doesn't get an allowance. I'll slip him a 20 here and there. But there's no formal payment, but I love that idea of almost like a paycheck. And but my favorite part was talking about negotiations and raises and owing. Like when you break something, it's on you. So now it's going to create this, I better be a little bit more careful or thoughtful or mindful
Yes.
of these
Mm-hmm.
aren't my things, but it does work. And I've noticed that when I say things like I'm meeting you halfway, for example, you brought up taking out the trash and building that habit, and he's responding. It's like, well,
Mm.
I put them in the bags and they're sorted here. You just have to take them outside into the trash. And it took a while. And growing up, there was very much a lot of you need to learn it the first time
Mm-hmm. Mm.
or else.
Oh gosh.
So for him, I'm giving him a little bit more grace in terms of, okay, well, the first time we asked him to do the trash, it was a mess.
Mm.
But I was like, let me do this in my mind, this experiment. Let me give him 3 weeks and see what happens. And they say it typically takes 21 to 30 days to build a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, he responded. And as soon as he gets home every Wednesday, he doesn't even ask. He just goes straight there. And then he gets on me when I don't do my part.
Mm. And
Yeah.
you didn't even have to pay him for it.
And I didn't have to pay him for it. So I'm grateful that I've been able to kind of build some bridges and knock down some walls in that situation. And in terms of financial education and financial literacy and empowerment, I think all of those ideas are a great start because I know even as adults, we struggle with debt management, even imposter syndrome. And that can
Mm-hmm.
apply in many aspects in our lives. Is that something, for example, imposter syndrome, is that something that can be avoided in terms?
No,
No.
no, no. I think it's a natural instinct
Okay.
to feel like you're not doing, your best, or you're not good enough. It's just
Yeah.
natural. I mean, that's just mind trash that we have to learn how to filter through. It's all learning, right? It's learning a process to tell yourself, okay, even though right now I feel like I'm not the greatest at whatever it is I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
but I have to remind myself that I can get better, and that other people are also struggling or may not be perfect. It may look like that on the outside, but it's not always true.
Right.
And yeah, just to call on your support systems, and maybe that is not your area of strength, then call on people who can help support you where you aren't as strong. But that is something that is just so natural. All the emotions, all the feelings, we have to normalize it, right? And say, okay,
Absolutely.
it's normal. How do I get past it though? And that's where the skill building takes place.
Yeah. And I'm learning more about myself through him than he probably is with me. And
Right.
like I said, he inspired this conversation, and I'm so grateful that you are here to continue to open up the dialogue because that's what I really want to accomplish is just to open up the dialogue and, like you said, normalize it because growing up, we didn't have these tools or the language or the resources or podcasts or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for people to just have these conversations on a whim or planned or whatnot. And sometimes having too much information can be overwhelming, but at the same time, realizing our own power and taking action where we have the capacity to is key to all of our growth and our success. So I'm definitely going to implement a lot of those tools with my nephew, even with myself, as I'm still a growing adult. I'm still even healing my own inner child. And so with that said, what is one way we can parent ourselves successful as adults?
As adults, what you want to do is first just understand that you are not expected to be perfect. There's no perfect parent or guardian.
Yes.
You have to just understand that you're going to fumble your way through some things sometimes, but it does help to have a guide, at least to help us understand these are characteristics that parents have when they are parenting their children to success levels. And there is research behind it. So that's why I have that free downloadable, which you can share. How to raise highly successful kids. There are certain things that we can do as parents and guardians to support them in that. So make sure you put that in the link or the notes for your listeners. But there are just so many things that you can do. And one thing that you can do is just model your expectations. I would say that's a big, huge piece of parenting. You can't always say, hey, why don't you do this? I want you to be nicer to your sister, but you're yelling at your spouse, so in front of the kids. But you have to model your expectations. If you want them to save and give and invest, then you do that and then show them how you're doing it so that they learn from you, because they are learning from you. They're watching you. If you're going to react in a very anxious way to certain situations, then your children will probably be anxious as well. So everything you model, they pick up on it. And you don't want to leave the parenting to someone else. You want to be in control of how you raise your kids or your family members. So that's what I would say is very important and very key.
That's perfect. That is perfect. And before we close out, I do have a segment called The Keys. And you've given us so many keys, so many gems that I'm definitely going to link everything you mentioned in the description, her website, her podcast, the book you mentioned, as well as your free download. I like to close out with a key that you want to share. It could be quote, a song lyric, you've already shared book, anything that just resonates with you that you want to leave the audience with today. And then let us know where we can follow you and find you. Give us all the rundown of where you live on these internet streets, and we'll go from there. So give us the keys, Jessika.
Absolutely. I would say a major key that I like to tell parents is your child does not have to be the traditional AB student to be highly successful. Yes. There are so many pathways to success, and that's what I really do focus on a lot when I work with parents, is building their child's confidence and also looking at their strengths. So strengths-based parenting. And you can always find me at jessicashields.com. That's Jessika with a K, not a C. And then I feel like I have to spell Shields sometimes with people. I before E, except after C, right? But jessicashields.com. The name of my company is Stronger Minds, Stronger Youth. And you can always go there too. They both point to each other. StrongerMinds, StrongerYouth.com. And my Instagram handle is at Stronger Minds, Stronger Youth, and my Facebook handle is at Stronger Minds, Stronger Youth. But yes, the Parent Them Successful podcast is also linked to all of the websites, so you don't have to worry. That's where you can find me in these internet streets.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jessika. And like she said, head to jessicashields.com. All of the information will be in the description. You can also go to transactioncarepodcast.com where I will have her information as well. Thank you again for being a friend to me, a resource to many, and an advocate for the youth. Like I said, your work is much needed. It is the work of God, and you are a blessing to many. This has been another episode of Transaction Care, the podcast. My name is Lillian Hernandez, but you can call me Lily. New episodes every Monday. Be sure to follow the podcast, join the community, and stay up to date with the latest. And until the next episode, care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's coordinate. Talk soon.